Okay, so I am still reading I Hate You, Don't Leave Me by Gerald Kreisman and Hal Strauss. So I'm still on chapter 1 and the first idea within chapter 1 because YouTube won't let me outline, won't let me read more than 15 minutes. Alright. I think I can read this one short. Okay, demographic borders. Who are the borderline people one meets in everyday life? She is Carlotta, a friend since grade school. Over a minor slight, she accuses you of stabbing her in the back and tells you that you were really never her friend at all. Weeks or months later, Carlotta calls back, congenial and blasé, as if nothing had happened between you. He is Bob, a boss in your office. One day, Bob bestows glowing praise for your efforts in a routine assignment. Another day, he berates you for an insignificant error. At times, he is reserved and distant. Other times, he is suddenly and uproariously one of the boys. She is Arlene, your son's girlfriend. One week, she is picture of preppy. The next, she is the epitome of punk. She breaks up with your son one night, only to return hours later, pledging endless devotion. He is Brett, your next-door neighbor, unable to come to grips with his collapsing marriage. He denies his wife's obvious unfaithfulness in one breath, and then takes complete blame for it in the next. He clings desperately to his family, caroming from guilt and self-loathing to raging attacks on his wife and children who have so unfairly accused him. If the people in these short profiles seem inconsistent, it should not be surprising. Inconsistency is the hallmark of BPD, borderline personality disorder. Unable to tolerate paradox, those with borderline personality are walking paradoxes, human catch-22s. Their inconsistency is a major reason why the mental health profession has had such difficulty defining a uniform set of criteria for the illness. If these people seem all too familiar, they also should not be surprising. The chances are good that you have a spouse, relative, close friend, or coworker who has borderline personality. Perhaps you know a little bit about BPD or recognize borderline characteristics within yourself. Though it is difficult to get a firm grasp on the figures, mental health professionals generally agree that the number of borderline individuals in the general population is growing and at a rapid pace, though some observers claim that it is the therapist's awareness of the disorder that is growing rather than the number of borderline patients. Is borderline personality really a modern-day plague? Or is it merely the diagnostic label borderline new? In any event, the disorder has provided new insight into the psychological framework of several related conditions. Numerous studies have linked BPD with anorexia, bulimia, ADHD, drug addiction, and teenage suicide, all of which have increased alarmingly over the last decade. Some studies have uncovered BPD in almost 50% of all patients admitted to a facility for an eating disorder. Other studies have found that over 50% of substance abusers also fulfill criteria for BPD. Self-destructive tendencies or suicidal gestures are very common among borderline patients. Indeed, they are one of the syndrome's defining criteria. As many as 7% of BPD patients attempt suicide. The incidence of documented death by suicide is about 8 to 10%, and even higher for borderline adolescents. A history of previous suicide attempts, a chaotic family life, and a lack of support systems increase the likelihood. The risk multiplies even more among borderline patients who suffer from depressive or manic bipolar disorders, or from alcoholism or drug abuse. Alright, stay tuned for the next idea within Chapter 1.